Yet, as the questions were put to her, she was able to answer easily with seeming telepathic help from these purported extraterrestrials. According to the report, she indicated there was an organization, OEEV, which meant Universal Association of Planets, and that organization had a project, UNZA, meaning Earth, which was being conducted. Then an unexpected turn took place. One of the naval officers was informed by the woman that they, the extraterrestrials, were willing to answer questions directly through him, a naval commander and intelligence officer with no prior experience in telepathic communication. He took over and attempted to write down the answers to questions put to him by his fellow naval officer.
The word traveled back quickly to Washington officials and the very skeptical CIA. Nevertheless, there was no reason to totally disbelieve the report of this highly respected Navy commander.
Questions were put to him, such as, do you favor the government, religious group, or race? And would there be a third world war? The answer to both was no. The group then asked if they could see a spaceship, and the commander, still in a trance, told them to go to the window and they would have proof. The group moved to the window where they supposedly observed a UFO. I was told that a call was made for radar confirmation. The reply came back that that particular quadrant of the area was blanked out on radar at the time. After being briefed on all of the details, I asked the commander if he would attempt to contact me. He sat for several minutes and then appeared in a deep trance with his Adam's apple moving up and down rapidly. Questions were put to him, and he answered them by printing in rather large letters using rapid but jerky motions. It wasn't at all like his natural hand. During the course of the questioning, we learned the names of some of the so-called extraterrestrials. One was Krill, C-R-L-L-L. Another, Alomar, A-L-O-M-A-R. And another, Alpha, A-F-F-A, purportedly from the planet Uranus.
A case that just as well could have been written by a very imaginative science fiction writer. But here in my hand is the actual account of the incident by one of the agents present at that time. The names of 7 men present are listed here. Because of the unusual nature of the incident and at their request, their names will remain confidential.
Another reason for control of the Blue Book files was to protect the names of witnesses. To help satisfy public demand, periodic summary releases were made. We had no proof that we were indeed being visited by extraterrestrial vehicles under intelligent control. However, we couldn't prove that there weren't spaceships either. It created a dilemma for the Air Force.
In 1966, an important incident takes place in Michigan. It creates enough of an uproar that President Gerald Ford would at that time call for a congressional hearing on UFOs. Here are excerpts from Ford's actual letter to the House Armed Services Committee.
The Air Force sent a consultant, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, to investigate various reports, and he dismissed all of them as products of college student pranks, or swamp gas, or an impression created by the rising crescent moon and the planet Venus. I do not agree that all of these reports can be or should be so easily explained away. I am proposing that the Science and Astronautics Committee, or the Armed Services Committee of the House, schedule hearings on the subject of UFOs and invite testimony from both the executive branch of government and some persons who claim to have seen UFOs. I think we owe it to the people to establish credibility regarding UFOs. Sincerely, Gerald R. Ford, Member of Congress.
Congress acts on Ford's letter and holds an open hearing under the chairmanship of L. Mendel Rivers of the House Armed Services Committee. Only 3 persons are invited to testify. The Secretary of the Air Force, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and Project Blue Book head at the time, Colonel Hector Quintanilla. Hector Quintanilla relates the events and reports of the unusual sighting that led up to the congressional hearing.
There were 2 sightings, one at Hillsdale and the other one here at Dexter. Based upon the original reports from the Sheriff's Department, it all began at 8:35 p.m. on March 20th, when Frank Manor, who used to live over there, reported to the sheriff's office that he had seen a strange object in the swamp over there. According to the police report, the police officer, in company with the complainant, proceeded along Territorial Road until they reached Brant Road, at which time they turned left, proceeded to the end of the road, secured their vehicle, got out of the automobile, proceeded along the cornfield, keeping the trees lined to their left. Then they crossed an open field to the creek. They crossed the creek and reached this point, which was their vantage point, and observed the object. Frank Manor described the object as brown in color, quilted, with a porthole in the center, sort of flat on the bottom, cone-shaped towards the top. Two small lights, one at each end, one glowing bluish green, the other one a brilliant red, with a glow at the bottom.
Well, of course, by the time I arrived, the situation was so charged with emotion that it was impossible for me to do any really serious investigating. I had to fight my way through reporters to interview the witnesses.
Other sightings were reported over the area, and a solution from Dr. Hynek and Major Quintanilla seemed in the offing.
Well, the pressure was mounting for an official explanation. There were more than 60 newsmen jammed in at that news conference. I gave what I thought to be at that time the only scientific explanation possible for the faint lights in the swampy area. I made the statement that it could be swamp gas, and even though I went on to emphasize that I couldn't prove it in a court of law, that was the full explanation for these sightings. Well, the press picked up the phrase swamp gas and rushed off to the telephones, and I was to come into a great deal of criticism over it.
What was the outcome of that congressional hearing?
I believe the Air Force presented its side quite openly and completely. It seemed to satisfy the members of the committee.
Now a remarkable observation is to be recorded. If the facts are correct, the Air Force must now consider the possibility of beings related to UFOs.
It happened in Socorro, New Mexico, here just outside of this quiet desert town. A state highway patrol officer, Lonnie Zamora, was on duty, as he had been for the past several years. A black Chevrolet was observed, speeding by the courthouse. Zamora put his highway patrol car into pursuit. Lonnie chased the car north on US 85. As he passed this hilly area, Zamora heard a roar and something caught his attention. 10 or 15 seconds pass. Lonnie then calls in to the sheriff's office.
The time was about 5:45, I recall, and he said, support to 1044, an accident. And then he said, I'll be 10-6 out of the car, which meant that I was going to be investigating a possible accident.
And I went up this road about a half a mile, and then I stopped my car and I got out and looked out, and I could see a white looking object in the distance. I thought it was an overturned car at first, but I got into my patrol car and went up closer to it. And when I started to get out of the car, I heard a big roar. As I got to it, I could see looked like a couple of coveralls hanging from a clothesline. I couldn't see what it was, but it looked like a couple of coveralls.
Zamora called in. He sounded very excited. He said he watched an object lift up slowly and disappeared into the sky very fast. I went down to where the object had been, and I noticed the brush was burning in several places. The object had left 4 perpendicular impressions on the ground. I noticed several bushes were smoldering, but they felt cold to the touch. I noticed what appeared to be a couple of oval footprints on the ground. I knew Lonnie had seen something. The proof was right there.
The incident was very interesting, to say the least. It seems to differ from practically all the earlier cases we investigated from one standpoint. The vehicle had left pod marks. There was an insignia observed by Lonnie Zamora on the side of the craft. The insignia was unidentifiable, not American nor Russian. And last of all, the observation of these two people in some sort of suit.
But what did the investigation turn up? What was the official Air Force estimation of the situation?
We went over the case completely. We had soil samples tested at the Air Materials Laboratory. The burnt bushes were analyzed for propellant residue. We measured the distances between the pod marks. My first reaction was that it was a lunar test module from NASA or the Air Force. That seemed to be the only logical explanation. This was probably the best documented case in the Air Force files, and I checked it out everywhere, all the way up to the top, even to the White House command post, and nothing.
According to the official status of the sighting of Lonnie Zamora, case carried as unidentified, pending additional data.
April 19th, 1897, in Leroy, Kansas, a farmer named Alexander Hamilton, his son, and a farmhand are awakened by strange noises from the cattle pen. Going outside, they discovered, to Hamilton's utter amazement, an enormous airship with a brilliant searchlight is slowly descending over the cow lot. Fearfully, Hamilton moves closer and is startled to find that one of his cows has been caught by a red cable running down from the ship. The next day, after an extensive search, he discovers the cow's hide, legs, and head in a field miles away. This is one of the first recorded cattle mutilations connected with UFOs. The report could easily be dismissed as a tall tale if there were no others. But since then, thousands of bizarre animal mutilations have been discovered, not only in this country, but in Africa, Australia, Brazil, and many European countries, in fact, all over the world. In this country, mutilations have occurred in over 30 states in the last 5 years alone. Frustrated ranchers and law enforcement officials have come to recognize the classic signature of the mysterious mutilators. Often, in a remote area, a cow will be found dead, the sex organs removed, and the tongue, an ear, and an eye all surgically cut out. The body, more often than not, has been drained of blood, though no blood has been found on the ground. In fact, there are no tracks or prints of any kind near the body. And yet, amazingly enough, there is no evidence of a struggle. One of the first states to be hit by the mutilations was Colorado. Reporter Bill Jackson of the Serling Advocate covered the story from the very beginning.
A classic mutilation, or say 90 to 95% of the mutilations will be almost identical. Some part of the face will be gone, exposing nothing but, the jawbone. An eye will be taken, the tongue will be cut out, and an ear will be taken. The rectal area of the animal will be what appears to be bored out. The reproductive organs will be removed. In the case of a cow, the udder will either be entirely removed or parts of it will be removed. Usually, in probably 90 or 95% of the cases, there will be no blood whatsoever in the animal. And there will be no traces of blood on the ground where it fell or where it was mutilated. All you've got is the carcass, and you've got no idea why it died, or how it died, or how it was mutilated. Or it all began in 1975. It was a bizarre time. Nobody had ever seen anything like this before. Not only did we have the mutilated dead animals on the prairie, but we also started getting the lights in the sky at night. Along that time, there were many theories that were being developed on why this was being done. The satanic cults were being blamed, dope smugglers, UFOs, a government experiment of some kind. As time went on, the situation became so widespread that people...
And that organization had a project, UNZA, meaning Earth, which was being conducted. Then an unexpected turn took place. One of the naval officers was informed by the woman that they, the extraterrestrials, were willing to answer questions directly through him, a naval commander and intelligence officer with no prior experience in telepathic communication. He took over and attempted to write down the answers to questions put to him by his fellow naval officer.
The word traveled back quickly to Washington officials and a very skeptical CIA. Nevertheless, there was no reason to totally disbelieve the report of this highly respected Navy commander.
Questions were put to him, such as, do you favor the government, religious group, or race? And would there be a third world war? The answer to both was no. The group then asked if they could see a spaceship, and the commander, still in a trance, told them to go to the window and they would have proof. The group moved to the window where they supposedly observed a UFO. I was told that a call was made for radar confirmation. The reply came back, yet, as the questions were put to her, she was able to answer easily with seeming telepathic help from these purported extraterrestrials. According to the report, she indicated there was an organization, OEEV, which meant Universal Association of Planets,